ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, good morning.
Hi, this is Gowri.
Of course, this is Arlene, and you're with us on our very beautiful morning, and as well as we will bring you news and also commentaries on Southeast Asia.
That's right, and this is our ASEAN Daily, which runs every day from Monday to Friday, starting at 8 o'clock, where we deliver our news commentary.
So, before we go to the heavy news, I think we should start with something not that heavy, but yeah, still quite heavy. It's about the Southeast Asia Games competitor involving in a fatal motorcycle crash. This was a breaking news yesterday. A member of the Singapore team competing at the Southeast Asian Games is in hospital after being involved in a fatal motorcycle accident on Sunday, which resulted in the death of his younger brother.
And of course, Muhammad Azrin is only a 25-year-old member of Singapore's Sepak Takraw team, and he was riding his motorcycle on the Singapore Expressway in the early hours of Sunday morning, and then he collided with a car. It's quite tragic. Sounds like a young boy with a very promising future who was involved in the SEA Games who just had a tragic death just like that.
And it's a huge blow to Singapore because recently a number of its students were involved in another fatal accident at the Mount Kinabalu due to the earthquake. So definitely something that is not it's not positive for Singapore right now. But on the other hand, talking about the Rohingya, which is equally unfortunate in this particular time, apparently Riyadh, which is Saudi Arabia, willing to chip in for the Rohingya.
And they have been positively responding towards Malaysia's proposal for a humanitarian fund for the Rohingya and Bangladeshi immigrants who are still stranded at sea. And this was brought up by our very own Malaysian Prime Minister, who said that Saudi's ruler King Salman had agreed to in principle to contribute to the fund, and it seems that Malaysia is stepping up to bring in some funding in order to help the refugees who were stranded in the sea.
So we propose it all the way to Saudi Arabia. And actually Malaysia has made the proposal as ASEAN chairman. Besides Saudi Arabia, also the United Arab Emirates, or UAE, has agreed to contribute.
And apart from that, we all know that our Prime Minister is of course away at this time, and there's been a lot of criticism about that. But apart from monitoring the situation from afar, he also said that he's discussing some very important issues relating to international security, including the Islamic State terrorist threats, which he discussed with the Saudi king. So I don't know if this justifies his absence of not being here, but that is his official reason for being in Saudi at the moment.
But you know, he took the whole cabinet to Saudi Arabia. Does that raise any question to you?
It's definitely unnecessary to bring the whole cabinet with him. I mean, especially at a time like this. Even last year during the floods, there were a lot of criticism because he was playing golf in the US, and it's so sad that it has happened again, also in times of tragedy and when the country really need their prime minister to be around.
You seem angry about it.
I am angry about it.
But
because people still I have nothing against the government, not for biased reasons, but when things like this happen, it just reiterates the fact further that.
But that means it's quite hard to be a Malaysian government, because at the same time you have to take care of domestic issue, but there's impending regional threats that is happening either in this country or in this region. Among the topics of discussion with the Saudi government were issues regarding on IS, Islamic State, and also the Rohingya issue as well, and a lot of other security threats that Malaysia government hopes that they can cooperate with the Saudi government.
But I think it's always being done not at a proper time. As much as, of course, the Islamic threat is the Islamic State's threat is important. what's more important is your people back home needs you. And a lot of them are dying because there's no proper search and rescue mission happening, although he did say that he's doing it through the ministers, he's monitoring the situation, he's making sure that it's provided there. But according to a lot of interviews, it's all being done by the mountain guides or by NGOs or individuals. There isn't much help from the government. So where exactly is his justification for that?
That means his people are not doing their job.
Probably, which is why he should come back and push them to do something.
Yeah, talking about managing a country, another country that is not easy to manage is definitely Indonesia. But the Indonesian government is tackling poverty, and about 28 million Indonesians, or more than 5 times Singapore's population, continue to live below the poverty line.
And most of them are only earning about $25 a month, and they not only lack education but also healthcare, and most of them don't even have a roof over their heads, which of course many of us take for granted, and they also lack the sufficient nutrition to survive. And it seems that President Jokowi has actually taken some concrete steps towards a more inclusive growth based on some of his steps that was taken last year. One of it is removal of the subsidies to channel the funds more into social programs for the people.
Yeah, especially fuel subsidies. Very unpopular for any government to remove it, but Jokowi managed to do it, so kudos for him. But definitely he justified by saying that the subsidies that he's removing it is going to be channeled towards something even greater, something that would benefit the social and economic livelihood of the poor, as well as infrastructure development plans to increase connectivity to peripheral the region in Indonesia. But you know, Indonesia's massive size and its decentralized structure make the administration an even greater challenge for any government.
I think the massive size, like you just mentioned, and also the fact that they're all scattered around in so many little islands, makes it really difficult for the government to reach out to every part of it and try and to even have a more inclusive growth for the whole nation, which is why it's so difficult for Jokowi as well at the moment. But he's been trying really hard, trying to bridge that gap.
Yeah, I mean, you have 5 large islands and not counting the smaller ones. The problem is some islands may be economically well off compared to other islands. That is because they have better natural resources, better infrastructure, but some of them are completely, still in the dark when it comes to access to opportunities as well as basic needs. So that's a huge challenge for a centralized government like the Republic of Indonesia to be able to redistribute those wealth to islands that need it the most. And with this decentralization, it creates, I guess, a barrier for that kind of rechanneling of wealth towards other states that need it more.
But is it possible to have a centralized structure for a country as big as Indonesia?
Well, that's the thing. Even in Malaysia, having a centralized government can be a plus and minus. The plus point is, of course, you can standardize things, you can redistribute resources easily. But the problem also, when you centralize resources, you centralize the power. That means if the government of the day abuse its power, at the end of the day, majority of the resources will be centered towards the central government. Then you see states that is still in poverty after so many years, even though they have oil in their state. I don't have to mention which state is that.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reason why having some form of decentralization would actually be good for some states.
And I think another issue that they are raising here is also regarding education in Indonesia and how it actually plays a huge part, which I totally agree with, because when your citizens lack the basic rights such as an education, it's very important for them to break out from that cycle, because their parents are in poverty, they are in poverty, and probably it leads on to their children, grandchildren living within the poverty line, and they could never have the basic skills that they need to actually get out of that and land a proper job and have the basic rights, access to food, to shelter, education, healthcare, which are important things that every citizen should have in a country.
That's the reason why human development and as well as inclusive growth in all areas in the country is really vital for any government to tackle poverty from the roots. On the other hand, another political issue that is not going anywhere other in cycles is on the South China Sea issue. So Malaysia right now is toughened its stance with Beijing over the South China Sea.
And it seems Malaysia said on Monday that it will protest what it called the intrusion of a Chinese Coast Guard ship into its waters north of Borneo, which is an unusually assertive step by the country amid tensions in South China Sea. So I think this news is also slightly embarrassing, because the moment we do something, people say it's unusual, because hey, Malaysia doesn't usually do anything about issues. And they're actually calling it unusual, and they're surprised that Malaysia is being assertive or toughening up against China.
See, we are not scared of our big brother.
not anymore, I guess.
But I think the South China Sea issue is definitely making ASEAN look very, very weak. The fact that only Vietnam and the Philippines seems to be two countries that are strongly opposing China, while the rest of the countries, they're either neutral or somewhat have no opinions on it. So for Malaysia to stand up or to toughen its stance with Beijing, I think it's a one step forward for Malaysia to exert its power. But we have to be careful about this in a way that we do not want to create tensions that would make the issue even a bigger one. We want to create this amicable solution where we know what we want, but we also understand the China's point of view on the South China Sea.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right for Malaysia to be careful, because we also have a lot of diplomatic relationships and economic benefits that we get from China, and we also still have the pandas here, don't we? And our Prime Minister, yeah, we haven't, so we need to kind of take care of that as well. And our Prime Minister said that he will actually raise the issue directly with the Chinese President Xi Jinping, and he said that I don't want to say it again. And this is in response to some pictures that they found, which showed that a Chinese law enforcement ship anchored at Laconia Shoals, which is an area about 150 kilometers north of Malaysian Borneo, and it's well within the exclusive economic zone that's claimed by Malaysia. And this is making Malaysia more wary about the whole situation. If we didn't really have a reason to interfere before this, right now we do have a reason to actually intervene and say something about this.
But a lot of people may not know the issue of South China Sea is not just between the Philippines, Vietnam and China. Some other countries also are claiming parts of the islets or islands in South China Sea, especially the Spratly Islands. For Malaysia, the Laconia Shoal is one of the area that Malaysia is claiming that is part of the Malaysian territory in terms of the maritime disputes. But on the other hand, we are also seeing that the National Security Minister Shahidan Qasim saying that Malaysia will raise the issue directly to the Chinese government or the Chinese president and take diplomatic action. So we are being courteous about this. But at the same time, we also want to show that just because we are a small nation, we don't. Just because we are a small nation doesn't mean that we are scared or we do not want to claim what is ours. But I feel that the dynamic of the South China Sea should change in a way that is much more neutral. Right now, it's still very much like, I put one foot forward, you put one foot forward as well, or I put one foot backwards, and vice versa.
And it's being done, like you were saying, that I think that's a very good example, because apart from Philippines and Vietnam, no one really wants to come forward and be direct or be bold about what they think about the whole South China Sea issue. And I think Malaysia as well, it's time for us to actually step up as the ASEAN chairman, although China did say that they prefer bilateral solutions and not a collective solution, because ASEAN as a whole probably doesn't really have much not in its place to actually comment on the South China Sea. But probably the best way to do it is for the countries to come together, whether or not China like it.
And one thing that we have to come together besides the South China Sea issues, of course, on the issue of human trafficking. So apparently Asia's human smugglers are going into hiding.
So for once we have a good news when it comes to human trafficking in Asia or Southeast Asia. And it seems after the crackdown that happened in Thailand, and also after all the boat people issue and countries taking in refugees, a lot of these human traffickers have actually gone into hiding and have not been making any demanding of ransom or promising anyone any safe passage to Malaysia.
And it seems like before, at least 10 to 15 people would come to every day to negotiate with human trafficker. This is according to Tun Win, a young man who offered a video call service from one of the bamboo and thatch hut. Now there's nothing. For now, at least, the smugglers who prey for years on the misery of Myanmar's Rohingya appear to be going out of business, and Asia's most acute migrant crisis since the boat people exodus at the end of the Vietnam War is ebbing.
And until last month, actually, their trade still ran pretty much like a clockwork. It was ongoing, no slowing down. But after the disruption that happened, I think the whole supply chain has actually sort of been interrupted, and also it has led to a sharp drop in the boat departures from all the countries out in the northern side, especially in Myanmar, of course.
My concern is, will this be a long-term thing? Because you will only go on business when there's no interruption, but once the issue die down, they might just continue business as usual, and that's the scariest part.
I totally agree with you. I think that human smugglers going into hiding is definitely not the solution. It's probably a short-term thing for a few months, but they can always come out again and do the same thing all over. So for us to have a long-term solution, they should seek out these people and actually put them behind bars or charge them or do whatever that's right.
Yeah, because according to Adam Smith, if there's a demand, there's always a supply for it.
So let's cut out
the demand for cheap labor, I guess. So we'll take a one short break. When we return, we'll talk about economic news as well as social cultural.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, we are back again. This is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And of course, we are continuing our ASEAN Daily on economy and business. So first of all, let's talk about unemployment in the Philippines, of course. So the 2015 unemployment rate is to stay within target. This is according to the Philippine Economic Planning Body, which is confident that unemployment in the Philippines will average within its target range of 6.6% to 6.8% this year.
And I think unemployment is actually one of my favorite topics
Me too.
to discuss.
Anything to do with wage
Right.
and employment, I'm like, game on, man.
And especially for a country, I think for me, you can tell whether the country is being proactive and whether they can adapt to changes or not just by looking at their unemployment figures. Because we know that the world is always changing, the industries are changing, and if the country is unable to adapt to the newest technology or the newest advancements or create the sort of job that is more, I would say, futuristic, and in that case there would be more unemployment because people are still resorting to the old conventional way of doing things. But when the country is more sensitive towards the advancements and they go for all these developments, creating new sectors and providing more job opportunities, that actually shows how well they're adapting to the modern times.
That's true. Gowri, are you sure you're taking performance arts? You sound like
It's just an
a
observation.
budding economist.
Well, thank you, but I was just making an observation based on some readings, but yeah.
So according to the National Economy and Development Authority in the Philippines, the Director General expects the jobless rate to decline further during the rest of this year, of course, as the government drums up job opportunities.
See, this is where it gets interesting when they say they're going to drum up the job opportunities, but where and how exactly? What is President Aquino's plan? But I mean, setting a target is of course good, but what is his plan to follow up with that, and what sectors will he be looking at?
So apparently they are going to increase the investment in industry and services sectors to create a bigger demand for labor according to the development plan. And the government said that under the Philippine Development Plan, specific interventions are prescribed to improve the business climate, increase productivity and improve innovative capacity. If you look at the language, it's quite similar to the 11 Malaysia plan from, of course, our country. The language seems to be very vague and very rhetorical. So when people, if you bring it to the ground and ask a layman, so how does this impact them? They would probably give you a big question mark themselves and ask you the same thing. I think for governments, the way it presents is plan for either job creations or to reduce unemployment. It needs to be very specific, like what kind of, like you said just now, what kind of industry that it's looking at, what kind of job creations that it's looking at. They could create a lot of jobs, but is the job matching the kind of workforce that you have? Probably you have a huge number of unskilled labor, or you have skilled labor but but with a skill that probably is not really relevant nowadays. So these are areas that the government need to speak clearly about, rather than saying that we will create more jobs, more industry, but what? The question is what?
And also, going back to your point, whether or not creating the jobs actually match the people and their skills, that is another issue as well. Because most of the time, I think especially when there's an issue of unemployment, you just sort of take whatever that comes your way, and that may not sound like a very bad thing, but in the long run, when someone is not happy about their job and their productivity decreases and they're not passionate about it, I think it does affect. It does give a long-term effect to that company and to the even to the economy in the whole nation.
And the fact that most of our income comes from salaried income is even more dangerous. I got the opportunity to speak with Datuk Charon, which will be aired later on, the interview with him on the 11 Malaysia plan. Because majority of the population, whether in Malaysia or Southeast Asia, comes from salaried income, it's quite dangerous because there's very little savings. Number two, that a lot of people possess little assets, little investment on investment scheme. So in the end, it's a very I would say thin line for the government to step on, because if it doesn't really deliver its promise to create more jobs or to create jobs that pay well to its citizen, it will only comes back to, in this case, Aquino badly.
And also speaking about that, but I want to ask you, in your opinion, when a country is suffering from unemployment, is it better for the government itself to come up to invest more in different sectors, different industries, or is it better to bring in some foreign investments, some big companies to open a branch here and to hire people to work for them?
I feel like it has to be a targeted investment, and the best investment is, of course, to invest in human capital, either through education, trainings, vocational training, of course. Also, another area is to create more business opportunities for local entrepreneurs. That way, you create a local community that are empowered to live to lead a more productive life. But these are areas that are nitty-gritty, and the government needs to understand the economy really well to have a strong economic growth. And at the same time, R&D is definitely important, research and development. Our country, unfortunately, is not really an R&D nation. Most of the time, we, in terms of the supply chain, we fall into the service sector, or the sector where we manufacture products, but we want to move into a high income nation. We focus more on creating innovations, making product more accessible, or making the supply chain smoother, and these are areas that we have yet to tackle. And talking about areas that we have yet to tackle, not just in terms of unemployment in the Philippines, but also in Malaysian Airlines.
Yeah, so this is another pretty close to unemployment issue as well. Well, we had a huge case of retrenchment that happened where Malaysia Airlines were cutting down at least 30% of their existing employees because as part of a revamp project that they're undergoing. And it seems that they will be hiring at least 3,000 individuals across the board over the next 2 years, seeking out for new blood to fill in positions following a layoff of 6,000 employees in their bid to turn the company around.
This is dumb. You lay off 6,000 and then you rehire 3,000. Wouldn't it cause a bomb rather than just like lay off 3,000 and keep the remaining 3?
I think their logic here is they want to have new, fresh, young blood. I think I don't know what they're going.
Sounds like vampire to me.
We should probably talk to Mr. Mueller about this and see what exactly he has in mind. But I mean, they're also saying that it's reasonable for the airline to infuse new blood again, as it seeks to change the operating paradigm and mindset at the operating level. So I think it's them hiring new people, fresh employees, is more to sort of revamp the whole idea of Malaysian Airlines and to give it like a fresher outlook and change people's mindset about the airlines itself.
So apparently it's called workforce right sizing. No idea what the hell is that. But one thing for sure, it must has come under fire and been slammed by the outspoken airlines union leader as heartless and insensitive. In a statement, Malaysia Airlines sole shareholder Khazanah Nasional defended the layoff as an exercise driven primarily by operational requirements of the new airline. He said that its quarterly update of the Malaysia Airline recovery plan that not all employees with the talent and experience matching the new company's needs and has been offered employment.
And it's very interesting because we know that the new CEO is trying to sort of revamp and rebrand Malaysian Airlines. I think we even
create a new
saw,
working culture.
yeah, that's right, and we even saw a possibility of changing the entire name of the Malaysian Airlines. But then again, I think I would agree with you that sacking 6,000 people and hiring back 3,000 people, I mean, as much as they want fresh new blood, whatever, but the existing employees already know what they're doing. They have the experience. They have, like they mentioned, the necessary skills and talent. So wouldn't it make more sense to actually retain those people than to actually sack them and rehire, go through the whole hassle of recruiting employees again?
I really do not know the justification for why they are doing this, fire and rehire. But one thing for sure, that it's definitely creating a huge controversy for Malaysia Airlines. I'm not sure whether it can survive its new branding name, because at the end of the day, it's not the fault of the employers. It's not the fault of the employees. It's more towards the employers, I would say. A lot of the mismanagement of the way mass is being handled. I think if I were to hire and rehire, I would definitely replace all the top management.
Actually, that is a good point. I mean, since we're talking about changing the mindset and changing the whole outlook of Malaysian Airlines, anyway, so why just sack the 6,000 people, right? Why don't you also change some people in key positions, perhaps that could also give a fresher, newer outlook to the company?
Why don't they sack the whole board and then rehire a new board? I mean, you want to create a new working culture, it starts from the top, right? So
that's right, absolutely right.
if you have the same top guy, no matter what kind of person you have down there, it doesn't make any difference. So let's not talk about economy. Let's move on to something much more, I guess, softer, which is on social cultural. Apparently Thailand is too dependent on the Chinese tourists.
Are they? So, of course, Bangkok is one of Asia's most visited cities, as well as Singapore, and they are also the most vulnerable to declines in arrivals and tourism revenues, especially because of their lack of diversification in visitors and also their growing dependence on Chinese tourists. So, when it comes to tourism, it is an important source of revenue, not only for Thailand or Singapore, but for many countries. But I think what they are trying to stress here is that when the country depends too much on just one particular country for tourists, that's when you're putting the whole thing at risk. You need to have a more diversified target, and in that case, I think it also goes back to how exactly you're going to target this different tourists from different countries. Like, for example, Malaysia has Malaysia Truly Asia, which means you can get Indian, Chinese, Filipinos, probably even Singaporeans, all in Malaysia. So that will be more diversified. But that's not the case with Thailand.
But don't you think the whole of Southeast Asia, we depend too much on Chinese tourists?
Actually, I think we do.
Except for Malaysia, we depend too much on Singaporean tourists.
Especially the southern side.
But at the end of the day, it's because of geographical proximity that drives Southeast Asian countries to have more Chinese tourists and be more dependent on them and cater the needs towards the Chinese. But at the end of the day, how does it affect Thailand as a whole in terms of tourism? I think that's a bigger question that we need to address in a way.
I agree with you that geographical factor is important, but I also think it still goes back to how exactly they want to project. Because if you look at Indonesia, they always project Indonesia is this country with lots of beautiful islands, and they have like spa and all this very calming, serene environment. And then there's Bali, where you can go to party, and people from all over the world are dying to go to Bali, whether you're from America, Europe, or whatever. So I think that's also something that they can look at, find their strength, and just amplify it.
So are you saying that just like Mars, they need some form of rebranding?
Yes, they do. Because Thailand is also famous for their beaches and the partying as well, but it's probably not as hyped up as it is in other countries.
Yeah, that's true. And another thing that you'll be surprised that is not really hyped up, is actually in huge demand, is Singapore's drag queens.
Are you kidding me?
I I am not, Gowri. I mean, considering that Singapore is quite a conservative, secular state that kind of have a huge Christian citizens, or whatever you call it. But then they also have a huge demand for drag queens.
And it seems that this we can also call them cross-dressers, are actually hitting up a lot of the dinner and dance circuit, as well as being hired as host for entertainment of the evening. And I think the pay is also pretty good when you're a drag queen hosting an event, rather than if you're not. And all these event companies also say that there's been a growing interest because a lot of the events also have more interesting themes. And of course, one of the most famous drag queen is the Singaporean stand-up comedian who is Kumar, who is very well in demand, and he's a Singaporean favorite. And I think that justifies. Yeah,
I think what makes Singapore's drag queen and stand-up comedy interesting, because they tackle on really taboo issues, especially issues relating to race and sexuality, and I think this is very healthy in a way that you create conversation, but you're not being too serious about it, because people are always very serious and hype out, when
that's right, and they need to laugh. I mean, and touching on topics like politics, race, and sex, it's not always easy, especially when it comes to certain countries. But the fact that they are able to bring it up in a light, comical way, like you said, probably encourages people to think about it, and don't be too serious about it. Just take it easy and just go home and think about it.
So, Gowri, we are at our end of the show now.
That's sad.
So, for you guys that you want to keep up with us, you can always go to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We post daily updates there.
And also don't forget to listen to us live from Monday to Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. on www.durianasean.com, or you can just download the TuneIn app on your smartphone and look for Durian ASEAN.